I think that has dried out really well, Toyah. Do you not agree?
I think it's fantastic. The crimson, which I was terrified of, so subtle now. And the sienna, it's virtually disappeared.
Well, that's the secret. You see, you have to put the colours on strong at the beginning, because if you don't do that, they will disappear. So now we're going to move on to this mountain. This big imposing mountain of Ben Bulben.
Which the light changes on every second.
Exactly. Now, we're standing here looking at that mountain. We can see there's a lot of detail on it. We can't put all of that detail in. Otherwise, it becomes too cluttered and too fussy.
Well, I'm glad you've said that, because I imagine it would take weeks, months to kind
yeah, paint every tree.
Yeah.
So what we want to do is try and put on an impression of what we're looking at. So I've mixed a colour here. This is Windsor yellow with a little bit of Windsor blue and some light red in it. And I just want to take the number 8 brush and start at the very top and just block that in, like cutting along the edge neatly and pulling down.
Okay, just all over the mountain?
Yeah, and it's very important, just down to that line there, it's very important that you follow the direction of the fall.
Oh, okay, I'm with you. The kind of gradient in the land.
Exactly, because any lines that you leave, the brush strokes will look as if they're natural to the fall of the land.
That's the same with oil, isn't it?
It is indeed,
yeah.
with any medium. Now let's stop there just for a sec.
Oh, I forgot to, I'm enjoying this. Is this okay? Yeah. I'm not going too
just
far
cut
down.
the top there, you have a very bumpy edge to that, just keep it nice. Draw the brush along the line, and that gives you a nice sharp edge. See that?
Yeah. Okay.
Beautiful. Now let's get a different mix here. This is ultramarine and light red. This is going to give us a very bluish green. Now look at that.
Yeah.
Pull that down in places, just a few sweeps pulling downward like that, to show that line of trees or shingle or any of that rocks, those rocks that are falling down.
Do you always have to work quickly with watercolour?
Well, you see, it dries so quickly, so you only have a limited time. If you want to feed a colour in, you only have a limited time to feed that in before the underlying wash
You can see it happening.
Completely.
It's absolutely lovely. It's living without the brush being there, isn't it?
A lot of the time, it is actually painting itself.
Yeah.
It's knowing when to stop fiddling with it. You know, and that's a big part of learning about watercolour painting. Off you go.
Okay.
Continue to block that in right across to this big crag here. Bring it with you, don't start and come back. Always move, you know, from there, working away from the wash. That's it. Now you can bring it down and stop at that line there.
As one becomes more experienced, can one interpret colour differently?
Of course.
Of course. So but in the beginning, it's best to be very literal, or as literal.
Well,
as
it's not that we're being literal. That's all trees and fields. All we're putting in is a wash of colour.
Yeah.
You know, and that's going to give us an impression of what we're looking at. Now, as you become experienced, you can experiment and do your own thing.
Yeah.
But you're better to follow a few basic
Learn to walk
guidelines.
first.
Yes. It's like B.B. King, you know, he was a great guitarist and he used to bend a lot of notes.
Yes.
You know, and then there's people who wanted to be able to bend notes.
Yeah.
They didn't want to learn to play the guitar, they just wanted to know how to bend notes. But you're better to learn how to play them and then bend them. Well, you've brought that on quite a bit now, Toyah, and you can see how that dark bluish colour fed into that has really given us a bit of effect.
Yeah, definitely. And it doesn't feel blue, it feels incredibly green on the paper.
Yeah, well you see, the fact that the first wash was still wet and it was quite yellow, when you put blue into that, the yellow and the blue mix together and give you green. If the first wash was completely dry, there would be no bleeding and no mixing.
Of course, yeah.
So it's important that you feed one in while the other is still wet. But one important point, the second wash must always be thicker than the first.
Oh, okay, more intense in colour.
Yes.
Yeah.
Stronger wash.
Yeah.
Less water in the mix. Now let's move on, and I have a wash here made up from Windsor yellow and a tiny bit of Windsor blue, and this is to give me a very, very light green. Now, what other place would you come that you could get painting with two brushes at once? You hold that one.
Can I have a go?
Just hold a sec to feed the second wash in, look. You see what happens, look?
Oh, right.
It bleeds through it. Can you see that?
Yes. That's brilliant. That almost gives the impression of fir trees kind of being dispersed.
Exactly. Now, I'll do the first wash, you do the second wash.
I worked with a watercolour once, a watercolour artist. I wanted an image for a record cover that was too delicate for makeup. So a watercolour artist came in and painted my face with watercolour, and she put birds and clouds across my face, and it took 8 hours. It was fantastic.
Let's have a go.
No, I don't want trees on my face.
Darken the centre and then just pull the wee shoots out. Look at the foliage growing as you do it.
Yeah. Is that enough?
Just another little bit down there. to darken that whole edge.
Oh, okay.
There we go. Now take a look at the scene for a sec. The background is very dark, the water's very light.
It's almost gunmetal, but I suppose with all the light on it, you would perceive it as light, wouldn't you?
Oh yes, it's lighter than the background, and it's reflecting the sky, and the sky has turned pretty grey. But at the same time, there looks to be a little bit of a sheen off it, as you say, gunmetal or steel grey colour.
Yes.
So how we get that? We mix cerulean blue with a bit of neutral tint and a very dilute wash. The more water we put in, the more dilute the wash is, so therefore the lighter the colour is going to be.
Okay.
Now let's see what that's like. Isn't that lovely? Look.
Yeah,
Steel
that's
grey.
perfect.
Yeah. Now, I want you to come across, cutting that line first of all.
You're almost painting in waves. Is that
Yes.
deliberate?
And that's because the water is lying in layers like that.
Okay.
It looks as if it's layered. So just pull that across and keep working down towards the
Gosh, I'm
foreground.
chuffed with this picture. It's looking fantastic already.
Now, stop at the wall. Be careful there. Go back and do it again.
Go
Yeah.
over the pebbles?
Yes, but not the wall. Let me give you more wash.
Okay.
Now, as we come forward, Toyah, we have to lighten the wash because we need to bring that wash down in strength. Otherwise, we'll lose the effect of these dark pebbles against the light water.
Yes.
So I'm going to add some more water to the wash to thin it down even more. And off you go. Pull that across.
You actually dilute the whole mixture rather than dilute the brush.
Yes. You should always mix the paint in the palette first.
I think if I was doing this without your expert advice next to me, I'd have put all the blue up there and then tried to water it down on the
Yes.
paper.
All would happen in that case, the water would try to run, it would bleed back into the thick wash.
Yes.
And you would get what's known as a cauliflower effect.
Oh yes, I've
It's-
I've painted many a cauliflower.
That's it. See if you just do that there, look. It sort of thins it out a bit.
Yes.
That's lovely.
So you're very gentle with the brush, aren't you?
If you press the brush too hard, the wash stays in the brush.
Yes.
It doesn't flow out of it.
I'm used to my DIY
Yeah.
at home, you see. I'm used to painting walls as quickly as possible.
Do you want to put some dark colour in there just to give a bit of texture?
Yes, please.
Okay. Thicken the mix, the same two colours, raw sienna and neutral tint. You see if you feed a thicker wash in, look what happens, it bleeds through and gives you a bit more texture. Try that.
Okay.
I'll get a second brush here. Keep it level, Toyah, always level because then it looks as if it's lying flat. See with the second brush you can just soften that down.
Is that a dry or a wet brush?
That's a dry brush. Let's fill in the foreground here and then we can put on a bit of darkness on those little stones.
If you make a mistake, it can lead to something totally unexpected but very rewarding.
Yeah, well that's true. There are things, accidents that happen. You know, you spoke earlier about happy accidents in your
Yes.
life. It's exactly the same thing with painting. You're going to have things that happen but purely by accident that become your technique and your style. You know, Toyah, I think a couple more of those little blades of grass and you'd be there.
Okay.
So off you go, just a few more here and there, just to finish it off. That's grand. You see, you've put in all of the stonework, you've the wall in, and everything else looks good. And that little bit of shadow that you put across there just really works well to show that depth in the water.
It's a completely different texture as well, isn't it?
It is. Well, you see, if you look at the grass there in front of us, you can see that some of it's growing to the left, some to the right, and some straight up. So you really want to have it sort of growing naturally.
I can't get over, as it's dried, the mountain looks so far away. The perspective has come to life. And when you told me to draw the straight line for the water, I thought, oh, it's going to make it so flat.
Yeah.
But it hasn't. It's really worked.
But you've done a great job.
I've really enjoyed it. It's been fantastic.
I think it's near time you signed it.
This is where I ruin it.
There you go, there's the pen, just over here in the right-hand corner. Lovely, Toyah, well done.
First painting. Well,
Yours.
thank you. You're
Brilliant.
a very good teacher, I must say.
More from Sligo next time on A Wash with Colour, when my guest is Changing Rooms Andy Kane. But for now, it's goodbye from Yates Country.
For further information or fact sheets on a wash with colour, turn to CFAX page 6 to 8.